5 weeks before my wedding, my mother left a voicemail that told me exactly what I needed to know. Not what I wanted to know. What I needed to know. Honey, we can't make it. Grant's yacht party is the same day. You understand, right? I played it twice, then a third time. Not because I thought I had heard her wrong, but because there was something almost impressive about how casually she said it. Like she was canceling lunch. Like she was telling me the dry cleaner had lost a blouse. Like my wedding was an optional brunch she could skip if something better appeared on the calendar. Grant's yacht party. That was the better thing. Grant was my sister's husband. He sold luxury lakefront properties to men who liked saying words like portfolio, leverage, and exclusive access. He had a white smile, a louder watch, and the kind of confidence my parents mistook for character. My fiancé, Ethan Mercer, drove an old Ford truck, wore the same boots until they gave up, and told my family he ran a small medical software company. That was all they thought he was. Some IT guy with muddy shoes and a modest rental house outside Raleigh. They had no idea who he really was. I did. And I did not tell them. Not because I was ashamed of Ethan. Not because I was hiding him. I kept quiet because I knew exactly what kind of people my family became when they smelled money. If they had known Ethan Mercer was the founder of Mercer BioSystems, a medical robotics and AI diagnostics company preparing to go public at a valuation of nearly $6 billion, they would have shown up early, dressed beautifully, and cried in the front row like they had loved me properly all along. But it would not have been for me. They would have been for access, for proximity, for a chair near power. So when they chose my sister's yacht party over my wedding, I let them. I put on my grandmother's veil. I walked down the aisle alone. And while my parents were drinking champagne on Lake Norman, their friends started texting them one by one. Turn on Nexus's business. Is that your daughter's wedding? Is your son-in-law Ethan Mercer? Because 4 million people were about to watch the man they called a nobody introduced on national television as one of the youngest billionaire founders in medical technology. My name is Nora Bennett. I am 31 years old, a biomedical engineer, and for most of my life, I was the daughter people remembered only after they had finished praising my sister. Before I tell you what happened when my parents realized exactly whose wedding they skipped, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. And if you have ever been the invisible one in your family, the dependable one, the quiet one, the one people assumed would understand when they chose someone else again, subscribe, because this story is for you. I grew up in Millbrook, North Carolina, in a house where every wall knew my sister's face better than mine. My father, Robert Bennett, owned a small financial and insurance advisory firm on Main Street. He liked to describe himself as conservative, disciplined, and respected, which meant he wore navy blazers to casual dinners and believed every conversation improved when it became about business. My mother, Marilyn Bennett, was the kind of woman who thought social standing was a form of oxygen. She chaired charity luncheons, remembered who had been invited to which country club event, and could turn a casserole into a status performance if the right people were watching. Then there was my older sister, Lauren, 3 years older than me, pretty in the easy public way that made adults soften their voices around her. Lauren knew how to walk into a room and make people feel like they had been waiting for her. She was homecoming queen, prom queen, the girl teachers called bright even when her grades were average. Because she smiled like she was giving them something. I was different. I liked math, I liked labs. I liked quiet rooms where the rules were clear and results meant something. In biology, cells did not pretend to care about you and then forget your birthday. In engineering, a structure either held or it did not. In my family, love was more like lighting. It followed Lauren, it missed me. When I was 12, I brought home my first perfect report card, straight A's. Not 1 point missed. I remember standing in the kitchen while my father opened the envelope. My mother was arranging flowers on the counter. Lauren was sitting at the island, painting her nails and talking about some party she wanted to attend. My father looked at the paper, nodded once, and said, "Good, but you should learn to talk to people like your sister does." That was my applause. Good, but be more like Lauren. My mother did not even look up from the flowers. "She's right, she said. Grades are wonderful, honey, but people remembered charm. I was 12 years old, holding proof that I had done everything right. And somehow I still left the room feeling unfinished. The photo wall in our living room became my first real lesson in family mathematics. There were 11 framed pictures of Lauren, I counted. Lauren in a pink pageant dress, Lauren at prom. Lauren on the beach, laughing with her hair blown back. Lauren with my parents at a country club dinner. Lauren holding flowers after some school award she barely cared about. There were 2 pictures with me in them. Both were group photos. In one, I was standing at the edge of the frame in a blue dress that did not fit right. In the other, I was half hidden behind my father's shoulder. For years, I told myself it was accidental. Lauren photographed better. Lauren liked cameras. Lauren gave mom more options. Then, Lauren got engaged to Grant Whitaker. Grant came from a family with visible money, which was my mother's favorite kind. Real estate development, lakefront properties, boat slips, dinner reservations, men with tinted sunglasses, and women with diamond tennis bracelets. The week after the engagement photos arrived, my mother redid the living room wall. Lauren in a white dress on a manicured lawn. Lauren and Grant smiling under a gazebo. Lauren's ring in a close-up so large it looked like jewelry advertising. My 2 group photos came down, not moved, not rearranged, removed. At Thanksgiving, I stood in that living room with a glass of water in my hand and scanned every frame. Not one picture had my face in it anymore. I did not say anything. By then, I had learned that in my family, silence was not peace. It was a ranking. I went to Duke for biomedical engineering because machines and bodies both made more sense to me than people who said they loved you while editing you out of the walls. Graduate school was hard in a clean way. Late nights, caffeine, failed models. Cardiac valve simulations that worked beautifully at 2 a.m. and broke by breakfast. I loved it. I loved that effort had weight there. I loved that if a design failed, nobody told the design it was being sensitive. When I finished my master's degree, I sent my family the graduation date 3 months early. I emailed it, texted it, mailed a paper invitation because my mother liked things she could place on a side table when guests came over. The morning of the ceremony, my father called. "Sweetheart, I'm sorry. I've got a meeting with a major client. Can't move it." The major client was Grant. I found that out later. My mother texted 10 minutes after that. "Migraine, honey. So sorry. Take lots of pictures." Lauren did not respond at all. I walked across that stage with 3 empty seats in the reserved family section. 3 white cards with their names printed neatly. Robert Bennett, Marilyn Bennett, Lauren Whitaker, empty. Except 1 seat was not empty. Far left, front row. My grandmother Ruth sat in her wheelchair, clapping so hard her rings rattled. She was 82 then, spine curved, hair white, hands knotted with arthritis, and somehow more present than my entire immediate family had ever been. She had arranged medical transport from 2 hours away. After the ceremony, I bent down to hug her, and she squeezed me with surprising force. "I would have come even if they set the building on fire," she said. I laughed. Then I cried into her shoulder like a child. That evening, I called home because some part of me still believed a person could miss the event and still care about the meaning. My mother answered brightly. "How was it, sweetie?" "I'm sure it was nice." "It was good," I said. "Wonderful. It's just a graduation, though." "Brianna, sorry. Lauren did not even do graduate school, and look how well she's doing." Then she asked if I had seen the pictures from her spa weekend with Lauren. I opened Facebook after we hung up. There was my mother, in a white robe, arm around Lauren, champagne flute in hand. Caption, "Nothing beats mother-daughter time." Posted 6 hours earlier. While I was walking across the stage, she could not be bothered to watch. That was the year I stopped expecting them to come. But I had not yet stopped hoping. Hope is stubborn that way. The survives on crumbs long after dignity has left the table. I met Ethan Mercer at a medical technology conference in Austin. I was there to present a panel on cardiac sensor calibration. Ethan was speaking before lunch on AI-guided surgical imaging. I only stayed because his session ran late and I had missed the coffee break. He did not look like the other founders. No shiny shoes. No practiced stage voice. No polished startup vocabulary about disrupting the future. He wore a dark flannel shirt under a jacket, jeans, and boots with actual mud on the side. When he spoke, he did not make medicine sound like a market. He made it sound like a responsibility. He explained how AI imaging could help rural surgical teams identify complications faster during high-risk procedures. He talked about false positives, edge cases, and how dangerous it was when software people forgot that every data point had a human body attached to it. After his talk, I asked a question about valve imaging degradation and whether his model accounted for scar tissue density after repeat surgeries. He looked at me like I had just handed him oxygen. We talked for 40 minutes. We missed lunch entirely. 6 months later, we were together. Ethan lived in a modest rental outside Raleigh with a leaky kitchen faucet he insisted on fixing himself. He drove a dented Ford F-150. He wore old shirts and compared cereal prices at the grocery store with the focus of a man managing a national budget. He told me he ran a small medical software company. I believed him. Not because I was naive, because I did not care. I had spent my whole life watching people measure each other by usefulness, appearance, status, and proximity to power. Ethan was the first man I met who made me feel like I did not need to perform for my seat at the table. He read my published papers before I told him which ones mattered most. He remembered how I took my coffee. He kept granola bars in his glove compartment because I forgot to eat when I was in the lab. When I talked about work, he listened like the details mattered. Not because he was waiting for his turn to talk, because they mattered to me. That was enough. The first time I brought him home, my father lasted 90 seconds. We were in the living room, the one with the Lauren wall. My mother had arranged a tray of appetizers she called casual but served on china. Lauren and Grant arrived 20 minutes late, which my parents treated like an event finally beginning. My father shook Ethan's hand. "So what do you do, Ethan?" Ethan smiled. "I run a small company. Medical software." My father nodded once, the same nod he gave my report card. Then he turned to Grant. "How's the Lake Norman project coming? 12 million, right?" Grant leaned back like he'd been waiting for someone to open the door to his favorite room. "Closer to 14 if the investor group signs." My father's eyes lit up. For the next 20 minutes, Ethan sat beside me while Grant explained boat access, zoning, investor dinners, and projected margins. My mother laughed at everything Grant said. Lauren checked her reflection in the dark television screen. In the kitchen, my mother pulled me aside. "He seems nice," she said. "Ethan?" "Yes, Ethan, he seems nice. At least he has a job." I waited. She lowered her voice. "But compared to Grant?" She let the sentence trail off. That was one of my mother's favorite weapons, the unfinished sentence. It allowed her to wound you and then deny she had held a knife. I looked back into the living room. Ethan was asking my grandmother Ruth about the ring on her finger. Ruth was smiling, really smiling, not the polite version she used for my parents. She was telling him the story of my grandfather proposing with a ring he bought from a pawn shop and pretending it was an ancient family heirloom. Ethan laughed like it was the best story he had heard all year. My father did not notice. My mother did not notice. Lauren did not notice. I did. On the drive home, Ethan's phone buzzed 6 times in 10 minutes. He silenced it. "Work stuff," he said. I did not ask. Some people hear that and think I should have Googled him, maybe. But I had spent my whole life being investigated for value, grades, manners, looks, career, social usefulness. I did not want love to feel like due diligence. That was probably the space Ethan was afraid to fill. And later, I would understand why. Ethan proposed on a Tuesday in my lab at 6:14 p.m. I was running calibration tests on a prototype cardiac valve sensor, and my hair was in the kind of bun that meant I had given up on looking human. He walked in, carrying 2 coffees and a small velvet box. "No audience?" I asked, because I knew what the box was before he opened it. "You hate audiences," he said. "That is true." He opened the box. Inside was a blue sapphire ring, not huge, not flashy, perfect. "You told me once you liked the ocean more than jewelry stores," he said. "So I went with blue." I said yes before he finished. We chose Willow Creek Farm for the wedding. It was not fancy in the way my mother understood fancy. No marble staircase, no ballroom, no chandeliers, no linen menu cards with gold edges. It had old oak trees, wooden barns, wide fields, and a gravel path that curved toward a ceremony space under string lights. More importantly, it was where my grandmother Ruth used to take me berry picking when I was little. She would pack peanut butter sandwiches, lemonade in a thermos, and tell me stories about women in our family who survived men with bad tempers and worse judgment. Willow Creek Farm was the happiest geography of my childhood. I wanted to get married there. I called my mother to tell her. Oh, congratulations, honey, she said. Ethan, right? Yes, good for you. Then, without taking a breath, she said, Did I tell you Lauren and Grant got invited to the governor's charity gala? Apparently the Whitakers have a table. I sat on the edge of my bed with my engagement ring shining on my hand and listened to my mother talk about my sister for 11 minutes. Afterward, I mailed save-the-date cards, cream card stock, a watercolor of the farm. Nora Bennett and Ethan Mercer, Willow Creek Farm, Saturday, June 14th. I mailed one to my parents, one to Lauren and Grant, one to every aunt, uncle, and cousin I could think of. 2 weeks passed. No reply, no call, no text. I told myself the mail was slow. Then I told myself they were busy. Then I told myself they would call when the formal invitation arrived. Ethan watched me check my phone one evening while we sat on the porch. You do not need their permission to be excited, he said. I know. But I did not know, not fully. Somewhere inside me, I was still 12 years old with a perfect report card, waiting for someone to say, There you are, we see you. 5 weeks before the wedding, I called my mother to confirm the RSVP. She answered on the 4th ring. There was music in the background, laughter, glassware. Something expensive happening without me. Mom, the wedding, I said. You got the invitation, right? Yes, beautiful little card. Very rustic. The word little did a lot of work. So you and Dad are coming? A pause, then the voice, the soft one. The one she used when she wanted cruelty to sound like regret. Honey, we can't make it. Grant's yacht party is the same day. You understand, right? I stared at the kitchen wall. What? It is at Lake Norman, very important people. Investors, some of your father's clients, a few country club board members. Grant has been planning it for months. My wedding has been planned for months. I know, sweetheart, I know. But your little farm ceremony, you can send us a video afterward. We will watch every second, I promise. My wedding, I said again, because apparently I had become a person who repeated facts to people committed to ignoring them. Then my father picked up the extension. Nora, don't make this dramatic. There it was, the family motto. Don't make this dramatic. Meaning, do not react in a way that makes our choices look like what they are. Grant has major people on that boat, my father said. I need to be there. This is business. And I am what? He sighed. You are having your thing at a farm. How many people are even coming? Lab co-workers? Ethan's parents from wherever he's from? Monala. Right, Montana. He said it like an apology someone else should make. I am not going to sit on a folding chair in a field for 3 hours when I could be securing real opportunities for this family. For this family, I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so clean. My wedding was not for the family. Grant's yacht was. I was quiet long enough that my mother said, Nora, are you there? Yes, I said. I'm here. Then I hung up. 20 minutes later, Lauren texted. Don't be mad, okay? It is just logistics. I am sure your little barn wedding will be adorable. Little barn wedding. I read the message once, then again. Something inside me did not break. It straightened. For the first time, I saw the math clearly. I had been trying to solve an equation where the answer had been given to me years ago. I called my grandmother Ruth. It was late, but Ruth believed sleep before midnight was for people with boring thoughts. They're not coming, I said. She sighed, not surprised, just tired. I know, baby. You knew? I know your parents. I sat on the porch steps while the air smelled like pine and rain. I keep thinking if I'd just... Ruth cut me off gently. You have been just your whole life. Just tried harder, just called more, just smiled bigger, just understood, just forgave, just waited. And what did it get you? I did not answer. Exactly, she said, my throat tightened. I wanted Dad to walk me down the aisle. I know. What do I do now? You walk, Ruth said. You have been walking alone your whole life. But at least this time everyone will see it. The next morning, I called Laura, my best friend since college. No father walking me down the aisle, I said. I am walking alone. Laura was quiet for 1 second. Then she said, Good, I almost laughed. That's your support? That is my support. You have been walking alone your whole life anyway. At least now you own it. 3 weeks before the wedding, Lauren FaceTimed me from a pool chair. Sunglasses on her head, lip gloss perfect. A filtered version of her face glowing on my screen like she had been professionally lit by the universe. "You're not actually upset, right?" she said. "I am not upset." "Oh, good. Mom said you were being cold." "Oh, I'm being done. That is different." Lauren rolled her eyes. "Come on, Nora. Don't go all martyr. Grant's yacht party is important. There are investors. Dad has clients. Mom already bought a dress." "Wonderful. And honestly, your venue is cute, very Pinterest. But it is not exactly the kind of event people rearrange their lives for, you know?" I looked at her. At the sister who had always been handed the front row and somehow believed she had earned every seat. "I hope you have a great time, Lauren," her smile faltered. "Wait, are you being passive-aggressive?" "No," I said. "I'm being accurate." I ended the call. 10 minutes later, my mother called. "Nora, Lauren just called me crying." She was poolside. "That is not the point. She said you were cold and rude when she was trying to be supportive. She called my wedding a Pinterest project." "Oh, do not twist her words. You know how sensitive she is. Sensitive. That word was never used for me as protection, only as accusation." "I have to go, Mom." "Nora, your sister is fragile right now. Grant has a lot riding on this party." "I am getting married?" "Yes, and everyone is happy for you." "No, Mom, everyone is happy for whatever benefits them." Silence. Then my mother's voice sharpened. "That is a very ugly thing to say." "It is an ugly thing to notice." I hung up. My father called the next morning. "Nora, sit down. We need to talk like adults." "I am standing." "Go ahead." "Grant has serious investors attending. This goes well, it opens doors for the entire family." There is that phrase again. "What phrase?" "The entire family. It seems to apply to everyone except me." He made a sound of impatience. "You have always been difficult when you feel overlooked." "They feel overlooked?" "Nora." "Dad, I'm going to say this once. You are choosing a yacht party over your daughter's wedding. You do not need my permission to do that. But you also do not get to call it love." A long silence. Then his voice dropped. "You have always been hard to celebrate." I stood in my kitchen with the phone in my hand. There are sentences that do not cut immediately. They enter quietly, then open later. That one opened behind my ribs. "I understand," I said. He seemed relieved. He thought I meant I understood him. I meant I understood everything. That was the last time I heard my father's voice before my wedding. The next time he called, he would sound completely different. But by then, I would be a different woman. The night before the wedding, Willow Creek Farm looked like a place I had dreamed of before I knew I deserved beautiful things. String lights hung between the oak trees. Wildflowers sat in mason jars on long wooden tables. A wooden arch stood under the biggest tree, hand-built by Ethan's father, who had driven 2 days from Montana with tools in the back of his truck and insisted on making it himself. Ethan's parents were quiet, kind people. His mother hugged me like she had known me for years and whispered, "He has never been this happy." His father shook my hand with both of his and said, "Thank you for loving our boy properly." Properly! I had to turn away so I would not cry before the rehearsal. Then my grandmother Ruth arrived in a medical transport van like royalty entering battle. She sat in her wheelchair with a garment bag folded across her lap. "Open it," she ordered. Inside was lace, yellowed slightly with age, soft as breath, her wedding veil, 62 years old. "Grandma." "Wear it," she said. "Only heirloom worth a damn in this family." I laughed through tears. She leaned closer. "And do not let anyone say I was not generous. I saved the good stuff for the granddaughter with a spine." Around 5, I noticed the cameras, not phones. Not a cousin with a DSLR, cameras, professional rigs, boom microphones, a drone case near the barn. A woman with a headset speaking into a radio. I found Marcus Reed, Ethan's best man and business partner, near the catering tent. "Marcus," I said, "why are there 3 camera crews by the barn?" He looked toward them a little too casually. "Company footage." "What kind of company footage needs a drone?" "Modern company footage." I stared at him. He smiled badly. "Ethan said you knew they were filming some internal stuff. He said maybe a few clips." "Right, clips." "Marcus." "Nora, I love you and I'm terrified of you, but this is Ethan's thing to explain." That did not comfort me. Later, Laura pulled me into the bridal suite and shut the door. "You need to look at this." She held out her phone. A zoomed photo of one crew member's badge, Nexus Business. "The National Network?" I asked. "Yes, the National Network. Not Ethan's little startup marketing team. Maybe they hire freelancers." Laura stared at me. "You are literally a scientist. Where is your curiosity? Getting married in 4 hours. Ask me tomorrow." She threw her hands up. "You are impossible." I looked at myself in the mirror, hair pinned, grandmother's veil over my shoulders, hands steady. Today I am getting married. Tomorrow I will interrogate the media industry. Laura muttered something about emotionally avoidant geniuses and went to check the flowers. At the time, I thought the cameras were a side issue. I was wrong about many things that day. At 4:30 p.m., two scenes began unfolding 200 miles apart. On Lake Norman, Grant Whitaker's yacht pulled away from the dock under a sky the color of expensive Amsterdam 60 guests, crystal glasses, white upholstery. A string quartet playing Sinatra covers near the stern. My father wore a navy blazer and shook hands like every palm might contain a future opportunity. My mother posted an Instagram story of the lake at sunset. Caption, "Best night ever." Lauren stood beside Grant in a gold dress, one hand resting on his arm, smiling like a woman starring in the version of life my parents had always wanted to watch. At Willow Creek Farm, I stood at the end of a gravel path lined with wildflowers. 85 people sat in wooden chairs, friends, colleagues, Ethan's family. My grandmother in the front row, veiled trembling slightly in her lap before Laura placed it carefully over my head. There were 4 empty chairs in the second row, family section, wrapped in ivory ribbon. My mother, my father, Lauren, Grant. I looked at them once, only once. Then Laura squeezed my hand and whispered, "Walk," so I did. No father beside me. No arm to hold. No mother crying into a tissue. No sister adjusting my train. Just gravel under my shoes, lace against my skin, and the strange, clean feeling of not waiting anymore. Every step felt like a decision. I walked alone. And for the first time, it did not feel like absence. It felt like arrival. At the end of the aisle, Ethan stood under the oak tree in a gray suit, looking at me with an expression that made the whole world go quiet. Not admiration, not possession, recognition. Like he had always known I would get there. The ceremony was simple. That was the point. No orchestra, no cathedral, no performance of wealth. Just 2 people under an oak tree promising to stay. Ethan held my hands and smiled. "I do not have a dramatic speech," he said. "You are a scientist. You like data. So here is mine. Every day with you has been better than the one before." That is the strongest trend line I have ever seen. People laughed. I laughed too, but I was crying by then. "Did you just put a trend line in your wedding vows?" I whispered. "Statistically significant emotional commitment," he whispered back. Even the officiant laughed. Then it was my turn. I had written 3 pages. I used 1 sentence. "I do not need you to save me. I just need you to stay." Ethan's eyes softened. "Staying is easy when you are the view." The officiant pronounced us married. We kissed under the oak tree. My grandmother hit the arm of her wheelchair and shouted, "Finally!" The entire crowd stood. The cameras caught everything. The drone circled above the farm like a mechanical witness. And somewhere on Lake Norman, my mother was clinking glasses under the caption, "Best night ever." At the reception, lanterns glowed in the trees. People danced on a wooden platform Ethan's father had built the day before. My grandmother slow danced in her wheelchair while I held both her hands and swayed in front of her. She hummed an old song she could not remember the name of. "Does not matter," she said. "I am improving it." Marcus stood for his best man speech after dinner. He loosened his tie, lifted his glass, and said, "I have known Ethan for 15 years. I have watched him build things everyone told him were impossible. I have watched him sleep under lab tables, fly across the country for one meeting, and argue with investors who thought patient outcomes were a branding problem." Ethan closed his eyes like he knew where this was heading. "But the most nervous I have ever seen this man," Marcus continued, "was not before a board meeting or a launch or a regulatory hearing. It was before his second date with Nora, when he changed shirts 4 times and asked me if biomedical engineers respected men who wore flannel." The crowd laughed. I looked at Ethan. He was grinning, but there was tension in his jaw. Then I saw him glance at his watch. 8:47 p.m. Marcus gave him a small nod. My smile faded. Ethan leaned close. I need to tell you something.
Now?
I should have told you sooner. That is not a relaxing opening.
I know.
He took my hand and led me away from the music toward the porch at the edge of the barn. The air smelled like cedar, cut grass, and honeysuckle. Behind us, laughter rose and fell. In front of us, the sky was turning dark blue. Ethan took a breath. Mercer BioSystems is not small, I blinked. I know. You have employees. No, Nora, it is not small. I waited. We are going public next week. The current valuation is about $5.8 billion. The number landed between us like something heavy dropped from a height. 5.8, I said. Yes. Billion. Yes. I stared at him. Then, because brains are ridiculous under stress, I said, you drive a truck with duct tape on the passenger mirror. I like the truck.
Ethan. I know.
You told me you ran a small medical software company. I did. I just left out the part where small stopped being true a few years ago. I looked toward the cameras. Nexus Business? They have been filming a documentary special for 6 months, The Quiet Founder. I thought it would be mostly lab footage, interviews, company history. Then they wanted the wedding because they said it showed the person behind the company, and I said yes, because I wanted the world to see you the way I see you. That sounds beautiful and also like something you should have told me.
I know.
His voice broke slightly on the second word. I was afraid. Of me? Of losing the only person who never looked at me like a number. I stopped. Ethan looked down at our joined hands. My whole adult life, people have wanted something, investment access, company shares, introduction, status, a headline. You met me and asked about valve algorithms. You did not Google me. You did not ask who funded the company. You did not care what the truck cost. You read my work and challenged my assumptions. You saw me before you saw anything around me, he swallowed. I was terrified that if you knew, the one honest thing in my life would become another room where everyone was calculating. The wind moved my veil. Behind us, the reception music shifted into something slower. I should have been angry. Part of me was, but another part understood the fear too well. Because I had done the same thing in my own way. I had not told my family who Ethan really was because I wanted to see who they were when they thought there was nothing to gain. The answer was on a yacht. When does it air? I asked. Ethan looked at his watch. In 4 minutes, I laughed once. It came out half hysterical. You are telling me 4 minutes before the country finds out I married a billionaire? When you say it like that, it sounds poorly timed. It is poorly timed. I am sorry. I looked at him for a long moment. Then I stepped closer and straightened his tie. I married you for free, Ethan. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it for 2 years. That has not changed? He asked.
No.
Then I looked back toward the reception, toward our guests, toward the 4 empty chairs, toward the life I had just chosen. But I am going to have questions tomorrow. That is fair. Many questions. I deserve that. Yes, you do. At 9 p.m., Nexus Business aired The Quiet Founder. But nobody on Grant's yacht was watching television. Why would they be? They were on Lake Norman under string lights, holding champagne, laughing too loudly, pretending a boat full of investors was the center of the universe. The first person to notice was not my mother. It was one of her country club friends sitting at home with a glass of wine, watching Nexus Business because her husband liked pretending it was research. She texted my mother first. Marilyn, is that Nora's wedding on TV? My mother did not see it right away. Her phone was in her clutch. Then another message came. Wait, is Nora's husband Ethan Mercer? Then my father's phone buzzed. Robert, turn on Nexus right now. Is your son-in-law the Mercer BioSystems guy? Then Grant's phone buzzed. Dude, is your wife's sister married to a billionaire? By the 4th message, the yacht had started to change temperature. My mother pulled her phone from her clutch, irritated, probably expecting someone to ask where she bought her dress. Then she saw the clip. Me. Walking down the aisle alone, my grandmother's veil, the farm, the oak tree. Ethan waiting at the end of the aisle. And beneath his face, the caption, Ethan Mercer, founder of Mercer BioSystems. Estimated valuation, $5.8 billion. My mother went pale. My father snatched the phone from her hand. Lauren leaned over his shoulder. Grant stopped smiling. For a few seconds they all stood there on that yacht, surrounded by champagne and investors, watching the small IT guy they had dismissed become the richest person anyone on that boat would ever be close to. Then someone, I never found out who, said the worst possible thing out loud. "Robert, isn't that your daughter's wedding today?" That was when the yacht went quiet. Not fully at first. Quiet spreads in social rooms like a stain. One conversation stopped, then another. Then a woman near the bar asked, "Did they skip the wedding?" Someone else pulled up the clip. A man showed his wife. Another guest checked the name again. Ethan Mercer, Mercer BioSystems. IPO next week, $5.8 billion valuation. My father stood frozen, one hand gripping the back of a white leather chair. My mother kept scrolling like the next article might make the first one untrue. Lauren whispered, "That is Ethan?" Grant looked physically ill. It was not just the money. It was the comparison. Grant's big yacht party, the investors, the lakefront development, the $12 million project that had made my parents abandon my wedding, suddenly looked like a folding table outside a palace. My father was an insurance man. Numbers were his language. I know he did the math. 12 million. 5.8 billion. The ratio was devastating. Then the messages started coming faster. "Marilyn, I thought you said Nora married an IT guy." "Robert, congratulations, I guess. Did not realize you were connected to Mercer." "Lauren, why are you on a yacht? Your sister is literally on national TV." "Grant, do you know this guy?" By then, someone had gone into the yacht's interior lounge and turned on the television. Not because it had been on, because the room had demanded proof. And there we were, me in Ruth's veil, Ethan holding my hands, the narrator's voice calm and merciless. Ethan Mercer, the famously private founder of Mercer BioSystems, married biomedical engineer Nora Bennett today in an intimate farm ceremony outside Raleigh. The company, expected to go public next week, is currently valued at approximately $5.8 billion. Then the screen cut to a close-up of the empty family chairs. I did not know Nexus had filmed them. 4 ivory ribbons, 4 empty seats. The narrator did not know their meaning. The internet would. At the farm, I was dancing. I felt my phone buzzing against my hip during our first dance, then again, then again. Ethan felt it too. "Do you want to check it?" he asked. "No, we kept dancing." His hand was warm against my back. The fairy lights made everything look softer than it was. When the song ended, I finally looked. 14 missed calls, 23 text messages. My mother, "Where are you?" My father, "Call me now, Lauren." "Oh my God, why didn't you tell us?" My mother again. "Nora, I didn't know. Please call me. I love you, sweetheart. I love you." I stared at those 3 words, "I love you." They had not come after my graduation. Not after my first published paper, not after my patent, not after my engagement. Not when I mailed the invitation. Not when she chose the yacht. They came after a valuation appeared under Ethan's face on national television. That tells you what kind of love it was. Not love arriving late, interest changing clothes. I read every message slowly. Ethan stood beside me, silent. He did not tell me what to do. That was one of the reasons I married him. I opened a group message, my mother, my father, Lauren. I typed 1 character. Then I sent it. Laura was walking by with a glass of champagne. I held out my phone. "Take this." She looked at the screen and burst out laughing. "Oh, that is evil." "No," I said. "That is efficient." I took Ethan's hand. "Dance with me again," so we danced until midnight. Until my grandmother fell asleep in her wheelchair with cake crumbs on her lap. Until the band packed up. Until the last lantern flickered. I did not check my phone again. For the first time in 31 years, I did not need anyone to see me. I could finally see myself. By morning, the documentary had been watched by more than 8 million people. The wedding clip became the most shared segment of the night. The internet did what the internet always does. It found the seams. Someone found my mother's Instagram story, Lake Norman, champagne, sunset, best night ever, time stamp, 4:32 p.m. Then someone placed it beside the footage of me walking alone down the aisle at Willow Creek Farm. Same day, same hour, different daughter. The comments were brutal. Her parents skipped her wedding for a yacht party, and the groom turned out to be worth $5.80 billion.
I need to lie down.
She walked alone, and somehow that made her look stronger. The grandma came. That is the only family that mattered. The empty chairs took me out. Imagine calling it a little barn wedding and then finding out the barn groom could buy the marina. My mother deleted the Instagram story by 11 p.m. Too late. Screenshots are forever when the internet smells hypocrisy. I woke up the next morning in our little house outside Raleigh, still wearing half my makeup and my grandmother's veil folded carefully over a chair. Ethan was in the kitchen making coffee like he had not detonated my family's social circle on national television. I stood in the doorway. He looked up. "Good morning, wife." "Good morning, secret billionaire husband," he winced. "Fair. We're going to talk about that." "Yes. A lot. Yes. But first, coffee." He handed me a mug. "Oh, so fair." We sat on the back porch and I finally checked the messages. My mother had sent 12, my father 7, Lauren 17, Grant 1. Grant's message said Nora, unbelievable misunderstanding. Would love to connect with Ethan when appropriate. There may be strategic alignment between our families. I showed it to Ethan. He read it, then looked at me. Strategic alignment? That means he wants money. I gathered. I deleted Grant's message. Not because I was angry, because it was boring. 1 week after the wedding, the doorbell rang. Ethan and I were in the kitchen. He looked through the front window. Your parents, of course. My mother stood on the porch holding flowers. My father held a bottle of wine. They looked dressed for apology, which meant my mother had worn waterproof mascara and my father had chosen the blazer he wore when negotiating with wealthy clients. I opened the door. "Nora," my mother said, already crying. "We need to talk." I let them in. Not because I owed them a conversation, because I was ready to stop imagining one. We sat in the living room. Ethan stayed in the kitchen, close enough to hear, far enough to let me own it. My father spoke first. "We made a mistake. I folded my hands. "Which part was the mistake, Dad? Missing my wedding or not knowing who Ethan was?" The silence that followed was surgical. My mother flinched. "We did not know he was..." She stopped. "Rich?" I asked. She pressed a tissue under her eye. "We had no idea about the company." "Mom, you did not need to know about the company to come to your daughter's wedding." "That is the problem." My father shifted. "Nora, I understand you are hurt." "No, Dad. I was hurt when I was 12 and my perfect report card turned into advice about being more like Lauren. I was hurt at my graduation when 3 chairs sat empty and Grandma was the only person who came. I was hurt when my engagement card got less attention than Lauren's gala invitation. By the wedding, I was informed. He looked down. My mother whispered, "That is not fair." "What part?" "We loved you. I believe you loved the version of me that did not inconvenience you." She started crying harder. A year earlier, maybe even 6 months earlier, her tears would have pulled me back into the old shape. I would have softened, apologized, explained my tone. Made her comfortable with the discomfort she had created. Not this time. My father cleared his throat. "I want to move forward." "There it is." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means you are about to skip the apology and look for the opportunity." His face reddened. "That is not fair." "Then prove me wrong." He lasted 4 seconds. "Grant's situation is complicated right now. The yacht party was tied to a serious investor group, and after all this media attention, some people have pulled back. I was thinking Ethan and Grant might have some synergy." I stared at him. Synergy. 7 days after missing my wedding. 6 days after realizing my husband was worth billions. 5 minutes into his apology, my father had brought me a business pitch. "You drove 3 hours to apologize," I said, and still managed to network.
Nora. No.
"Let me give you data. In the last 10 years, you missed my master's graduation, my first patent filing, my engagement dinner, and my wedding. 4 major life events, 0 attendance." My father opened his mouth. I raised a hand. "The only time you drove 3 hours to sit in my living room was 1 week after finding out my husband was a billionaire. That is a data point. And data does not lie." My mother looked at the floor. My father's jaw tightened. "You are making us sound like monsters." "No," I said. "I am describing your choices." If they sound monstrous, take that up with the choices. Ethan had gone completely still in the kitchen. I stood up. I do not hate you. I do not want revenge. I do not even want an apology that arrives after a net worth reveal, because that is not an apology. It is a recalculation. My mother whispered, please. I walked to the front door and opened it. Go home. And when you get there, ask yourselves honestly. If Ethan made $60,000 a year fixing hospital computers, would you be sitting in my living room right now? Neither of them answered. That was the only honest thing they gave me. My father stood first, my mother followed. At the door, she looked at me like she wanted to say something that would fix all of it. But the right words had expired years earlier. I closed the door behind them. Then I leaned back against it and breathed. Ethan appeared in the hallway with 2 mugs of coffee. He did not ask if I was okay. He knew okay was too small a word. He just handed me a mug and sat on the floor beside me. I do not feel good, I said. You are not supposed to, he said. That is how you know it was real. For 20 minutes, we sat on the floor by the door while my parents' car remained in the driveway. Maybe they were arguing. Maybe they were crying. Maybe they were recalculating. Eventually, the engine started. They left. And for the first time in my life, watching them go did not feel like abandonment. It felt like space. In Millbrook, the fallout became a social event of its own. My father's country club friends stopped asking direct questions and started asking worse ones. So, Robert, your son-in-law is the Ethan Mercer? And you were at Grant's yacht party that night? Did you know before the wedding? That last question killed him because there was no good answer. If he said yes, he looked cruel. If he said no, he looked foolish. For a man who built a career on reading people's value, missing the billionaire in his own daughter's living room became a punchline with polished shoes. 2 clients quietly moved their accounts within a month. Not because of me, not directly, but because reputation is a delicate thing and my father had spent years selling judgment. If Robert cannot identify the biggest opportunity in his own family, one client reportedly said, why would I trust him to identify risk in mine? My mother stopped attending country club brunches for 3 weeks. Lauren called me after Grant's lakefront project collapsed, not at first. At first, she sent vague messages, hope you're well. Crazy few weeks, huh? Can we talk? Then one night, she called crying. Grant filed for bankruptcy protection. I was sitting on the porch. Ethan was inside reading acquisition documents and pretending not to listen. I am sorry, I said, and I meant it, Lauren sniffed. Everyone is comparing him to Ethan online. They are calling him Yacht Boy.
I closed my eyes.
I am sorry for that too. Can you ask Ethan to help? There it was. I looked out at the dark yard. An investment, I asked? A loan? A rescue? I do not know. Anything you have access to, she stopped herself, too late. I have access to my own life, I said. That is all I ever wanted. Lauren started crying harder. You do not understand what this feels like. That surprised a laugh out of me. Not a kind one. Lauren, I have spent my entire life understanding what it feels like to be the disappointing daughter. She went silent. Then quietly, I think I am starting to. I did not know what to do with that. Part of me wanted to hang up. Part of me remembered the little girl at the beach who used to hand me shells and say they were treasure. People are not only the worst thing they became, but you are not required to bleed forever because someone had better moments once. I am not asking Ethan for money, I said.
I know.
No, I need you to hear me. I am not asking him now. I am not asking him later. Our relationship is not a bridge to his bank account. Okay. If you want to talk to me, really talk to me, without asking for anything, you can call again, she cried softly. Do I still have a sister? I looked at the porch light, at the moths circling it like they believe brightness was the same thing as safety. I do not know yet, I said, but you have my number. That was the most honest answer I had. 3 weeks later, Mercer BioSystems went public. The stock surged on the first day. News networks ran Ethan's face next to numbers so large they looked fictional. Forbes put him on the cover in the same flannel shirt he had worn the day we met. The headline called him the reluctant billionaire. I told him it sounded like a cologne. He said he was legally obligated to hate it. Inside the magazine, there was a photograph of us in my lab. I was wearing a white coat holding coffee. laughing at something he had said just before the shutter clicked. The caption read, Ethan Mercer and his wife. Biomedical engineer Dr. Nora Bennett at Duke's Cardiac Device Lab, not Billionaire's wife. Not mystery bride doctor, Nora Bennett. I cut that caption out and sent it to my grandmother. She called me the next morning. I put it on the fridge next to my pie contest ribbon from 1984.
I praise.
Damn right. She died 4 months after the wedding, peacefully, in her sleep, no hospital machines, no long goodbye. Just lights out exactly how she said she wanted it. At her funeral, my parents came. They sat 2 rows behind me, my mother cried. My father looked smaller than I remembered. Lauren sat beside them, pale and quiet. After the service, my mother approached me holding a small envelope. The inside was a photograph. Me, walking under the oak tree at Willow Creek Farm, Ruth's veil catching the light. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, should have been on the wall years ago. I looked at it for a long time. Then I put it in my purse. I did not hug her. I did not thank her. I also did not throw it away. Healing is strange. It does not always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like refusing to pretend the wound did not happen while also refusing to keep it bleeding for entertainment. 6 months after the wedding, Ethan and I went back to Willow Creek Farm. The owners let us walk the grounds alone. The chairs were gone, of course. The wooden platform had been taken down. The oak tree was still there. The grass had grown taller where the family section had been. Wildflowers had pushed through. I stood in the spot where the 4 empty chairs had sat. For a long time, I used to think those chairs were proof of what I lost. My mother, my father, my sister. The family I kept trying to earn. But standing there, with the wind moving through the grass and Ethan waiting quietly beside me, I saw them differently. Those chairs had not been empty because I was unloved. They had been empty because the wrong people had been invited to define love. That is not the same thing. I used to save seats for them, I said. Ethan took my hand. And now, I looked at the wildflowers. Now I like the space. After Ruth died, I started a scholarship in her name at Duke for first-generation female engineering students who did not have anyone in the front row. Ruth Ashford Bennett Memorial Scholarship for women who showed up for themselves before the world learned how to show up for them. At the first award ceremony, a 19-year-old student with shaking hands told me her parents did not understand why engineering mattered to her. I said, then we will clap loud enough for both of them, and we did. I do not hate my parents. Hate is too much work. I spent too many years pouring energy into people who treated it like tap water. Always available, rarely noticed, free until it stopped running. Now, my rules are simple. I answer when I want to answer. I visit when I am ready, not when I am summoned. I do not explain my boundaries to people who benefited from me not having them. Lauren and I speak sometimes. Carefully. Honestly, for the first time. She has apologized without asking for money, which is the only reason I believe some of it. She is learning what it feels like to become visible only when you disappoint people who liked you, better as decoration. I do not know if we will become close. I do know we are no longer pretending. That is something. My parents still send holiday cards. My mother includes photos now. Sometimes one of me, sometimes one of Ethan and me, sometimes Ruth's wedding picture because she seems to understand a little too late. Which woman held the family's integrity together? Your stare still. My father has never fully apologized. He once said, I wish we had handled things differently. I said, so do I. That was enough conversation for that day. People always ask me about the emoji. Why did I send that? Why not a paragraph? Why not block them? Why not silence? Because anger would have told them I was still standing at the old table, begging them to understand what they did. Silence would have told them I was still deciding whether they deserved an answer, but laughter? Laughter meant I had arrived somewhere they could not reach. That emoji was not revenge, it was release. The sound of a lock clicking open after 31 years. Sometimes I think about that night, the fairy lights, the oak tree, Ruth's veil, the 4 empty chairs wrapped in ivory ribbon, the yacht, the messages. My mother's sudden I love you. My father's sudden urgency, Lauren's sudden panic. Grant's sudden interest in strategic alignment. For years, I believed being chosen would feel like someone finally arriving for me. I was wrong. Being chosen began the moment I stopped chasing people who needed a billionaire to recognize my worth. So if you're still waiting for someone to show up, for a parent, a sibling, a partner, a whole family that keeps proving they know the date but not the value of the person standing there, hear me. Walk yourself down the aisle, wear the veil, take the degree, sign the patent, buy the house, start the life. Do not keep postponing your joy until people who benefit from your emptiness decide to call it enough. And if they come running after the world claps for you, breathless and sorry and suddenly full of love, you do not have to scream. You do not have to explain. You do not have to save them a chair. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Or one emoji sent with a full heart and both hands free. I do not save empty chairs anymore. I plant flowers where they used to be. And if they ever come back, really come back, not for the money, not for the status, not for the access, but for me, they can find their own seat. I am done saving them one. So tell me, if you were in my place, would you have told your family who Ethan really was before the wedding? Or would you have let them show you exactly who they were? Would you have answered their calls, or would you have sent the emoji and kept dancing? Let me know in the comments, because I genuinely want to hear what you would have done. And if this story hit close to home, please subscribe. Share it with someone who has spent too long saving empty chairs, and check out the other stories on this channel. There are more betrayals, more family secrets, and more moments where people finally stop begging for love from people who only understand value when it comes with a number attached. Because my parents skipped my wedding for a yacht party, they thought my groom was nobody. Then the whole country saw who he was, and I finally saw who they were.